Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Greetings and shalom. We're going to take a fascinating look at what's called the Shema. In Deuteronomy 6:4, this is based on the ancient Hebrew pictographic alphabet. This is where each letter had a pictographic meaning, and we'll see how that unfolds as we progress. Shema Israel, Yahweh, Elohim, Yahweh, Echad. Or in another form, Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Or in Spanish, it's Oye Israel, Jehová nuestro Dios, Jehová uno es. Now the Shema is the Hebrew word translated to us as hear. The word Shema comes from the Hebrew word Shem. Now the word Shem is the Hebrew word translated into English as name. And Strong's is the lexicon where you can get the definition, and that's the Hebrew number there if you want to look that up. Alright, now Shem or name comes from the letter Shin. The word picture for the letter Shin is two front teeth, sharp press, eat, destroy. There's the letter there. Now the next letter is Mem, and the word picture indicating water, chaos, mighty, or blood. Now the picture word for name can mean destroys chaos. This is real interesting as we see what's going to come. Alright? Now from Shem or name to Shema, one letter is added to Shem to make it Shema. And that is the letter Ayin, which means to watch, know, shade, or to see. Now the letter there almost looks like a little flying saucer. That's the letter Ayin, which is like an eye, and the other letters there are the letters for Shem or name. Now the word picture definition for here is to see the name or see what or who destroys chaos. Now this is especially interesting due to what follows in the verse, which is, the Lord our God is one Lord. Now Shema here, the word here, is also translated in English as understand as well as obey. So if you look up every time understand or obey appears in the Old Testament, in each and every case, you will find that the word Shema is the word that is translated. So it's translated as hear, it's translated as the word understand, and Shema is also translated into the word obey, which is real interesting. Alright, now the Lord our God is one Lord. In our Bibles, the word Lord is Adonai, and this is a substitute word for the original tetragram, sometimes called the tetragrammaton or tetragrammanon. And this is the original four-letter name for God that became Yahweh or Jehovah. Now it's composed of the letters Yad, which is an arm and closed hand, meaning work, a deed, to make worship. Next is the letter He, a man with arms raised, meaning look, reveal, breath. The third letter Wah is a tent peg, meaning add, secure, or hook. And the fourth letter again is He. When we put the sound of the letters together, we get Yad He Wah He. And so now you can see where we get the name Yahweh for God. And there's the letters. And you can see I've got it going from right to left, which is the way it goes in Hebrew. Alright? Now we're going to talk about, for a moment, the names Yahweh and Jehovah. Both names come from the tetragram, and both names have vowels added to them. So they both come from this four-consonant only name for God. The vowels were added later, and we're going to see how the vowels are added to them to become Yahweh and Jehovah. Now, as you can see, Yahweh has one less added vowel than Jehovah does. Now, in the English alphabet, the letter J was originally used for the letter I. Now, Giorgio Trissino, he was the first to explicitly distinguish I and J as representing separate sounds in 1524. Before then, the J sound was like the I sound. Alright? Now, the picture word definition for the tetragram, Yahweh or Jehovah, is the maker of all that is. In his hand is all that exists, the self-existent one. Maybe that's where they got the song, he's got the whole world in his hands. All right, moving along. Now we're going to see an amplified translation of Deuteronomy 6:4 based on the word picture definition. So we're expanding this kind of like the Amplified Bible does, only based on these word picture definitions. All right? Shema, hear, understand, obey, and see who destroys chaos. Israel, those who prevail with God, which would apply to all us Christian people, and Jews as well for that matter. The Lord, Yahweh, the maker of all that is, in His hand is all that exists. Our God, the strong controller and shepherd, is one, first, alone, altogether. The Lord, Yahweh, the self-existent, eternal one. So there's the expanded version of that verse based on all those words and definitions we've looked at previously. Now, what should be our response to this great truth? Deuteronomy 6:5 gives us some instruction in this matter. It says, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And in verse 6, And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. Verse 7, And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. Which pretty much means throughout the whole day, doesn't it? And verse 8, And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thy eyes. Which means, obviously, connected to our thoughts and our actions and our deeds. Verse 9, And thou shalt write them upon the posts of thy house and on thy gates. Which the Jews do this. They have a thing called a mezuzah, and they have the scripture there with these verses, starting with verse 4. They have them hanging on their house, all right, on the posts of the house. Now, Jesus called it the first commandment. Here in Mark 12:29, and Jesus answered him, The first of all the commandments is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Verse 30, and he says, And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. This is the first commandment. Verse 31, And the second is like, namely this, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. There is none other commandment greater than these. There's, I believe it's 613 Jewish commandments, but they're all condensed down into these verses, what he's declaring here, because if we did what these verses are talking about, we would fulfill all those commandments from the Old Testament. So Jesus summarized it for us here in the New Testament. All right? Now, Jesus fulfilled and obeyed it perfectly. Jesus was the one true God manifest in flesh. And as a man, he perfectly loved with all his heart, soul, mind, and strength to the point of dying as the sinless sacrifice for sin. He would rather suffer than not do the will of God. And he did the will of God, so he perfectly loved God with all his heart, soul, mind, and strength. And he perfectly loved his neighbor as himself because he went in our place to the cross. He suffered in our place due to his perfect love. This is brought to you by Solid Word Ministries. There's the email. Thank you so much for watching. Hope it's been a blessing to you. And may God bless your day. Shalom.